for anybody that goes through this, the feeling of the emotional roller coaster that you're going through when rebranding, it felt to me like I'm giving up on my baby in a way. I was like, how can I do that?
It really is first and foremost about the 5-star experience, and I think that's what you're saying, right? Is it's like, let's treat the customers like real human beings and not things that we're trying to sell.
You post a comment without offering your services. You are not offering your services. You're just going to say something nice to them.
Hello, friends. I'm Adam Loveridge. Welcome to the Home Services Marketing Podcast, Growth to Acquisition. I'm the owner and founder of Jobcalls. We're a home services marketing agency specializing in heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and remodeling contractors. For more information about Jobcalls, visit us online at www.jobcalls.com. Hi, I'm Adam Loveridge with Jobcalls, and welcome to another edition of the Home Services Marketing Growth to Acquisition podcast. I'm being joined here today by David Katz with Trio Heating, Air Conditioning, and now Plumbing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Fantastic. Hey, David, thanks so much for joining me here today.
Love being here. Thanks for having me, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been real excited about this since we had an opportunity to talk maybe a week or so ago here anyway, and just kind of pre-planning this. And I think we're talking about a kind of an interesting topic today here, and going a little bit deeper into marketing specifically, and I would like to talk about, what you guys have been doing from a marketing perspective to help really make you successful. But I know that we want to dovetail into this a little bit further and talk about one of the real challenges, frankly, that exists out there with, I would say with HVAC companies or with marketing companies in general. It's like, how do we actually work together, keep each other accountable, and have good working relationships, because there's kind of this combat thing that kind of happens sometimes, between agencies and HVAC companies, and so I'm really looking forward to diving into that, here a little bit as we start to get into this episode as well. But before we really dive into that, take me back to the beginning of Trio Heating and Air, and talk to me about what your growth has looked like, and what you think have been some of the major reasons that you have been successful as a company this far.
Well, the industry is telling us that we're successful. We don't feel like we've made it yet, right? So we are still on the journey. We still feel like we're at the very beginning. That we're very small compared to our, what our targets are. But the industry, and the speed of growth it's kind of what's, I believe attracts a lot of attention right now. Originally, when we started, we didn't start as Trio Heating and Air. And I think that's part of the lesson that I would hope to share about. When we started in July of 2021, Mike and I didn't have any experience in the HVAC industry. We've never worked at an HVAC company. We had no idea about any of the technical knowledge about HVAC. We don't know how to diagnose a system. We don't know how to install a system. I don't even know what's the difference between a single stage and variable speed furnace. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I don't know anything about the sticker on the unit, nothing at all, right? And we decided to dive into this industry because we were in the insulation sales business, and we were doing well. And it was always something that, clients were asking about. Hey, do you do this? Do you do that? And that's where we saw the opportunity. When we gave it a try, we fell in love with the industry because everything was so measurable. And I think that's where we excel, at building systems and processes, understanding people. We discovered a community all of a sudden. That's something we've never experienced before in the insulation industry. And there were a lot of different things that fell into place. But when we saw a group of people who are taking pride in their work, who always wants to learn and grow, and there's, so many businesses and people are helping each other out, and, there's the good players and the bad players, but it was a whole thing. It was interesting. So that's how we found ourselves in the industry. Originally, when we started the company, our name was Pacific Area USA, which was a name that came up in literally a 5-minute conversation when we decided to start it as a side hustle thing that we were doing when we both had full-time jobs. And that was one of our biggest mistakes. And what led us to make the name change, which happened about a year and a half ago, just at the beginning of 2024, we changed our name. It was because we saw that our name and brand was coming between us and the progress we're trying to make. which is something that a lot of people would let slide or wouldn't trust their own judgment on. And I can tell because we've been through that process of not knowing what are we talking, like, why would you change your name? It's the company that makes the name. Like we can do this, and yes, and it's true. You're going to make the name. I mean, I know that there are a lot of companies out there with the exact same name. Some are wildly successful, and some have a 2-star rating on Google with the same 5 employees for the last 10 years. And for me, I noticed this when people were coming to interviews and they were saying, "Oh, I actually tried to apply last year, but I thought you guys are doing commercial. Like you're not in the residential sector, you're in the commercial sector." And we've gotten a lot of calls from commercial customers, that were asking for services. So I've noticed that something happened there. And the second thing is, so people for some reason heard the name Pacific Air USA and associated it with a company that's doing commercial type work and not residential type work. And the second aspect of this was that we didn't have any story behind it. We were not connected to the brand ourselves. We didn't wear it proudly. And that's when we just decided we're going to a complete makeover. It might destroy our reputation. Everything we've built so far was a very difficult decision to make. And it's hard to explain how much is going into this. I think that we ended up with a list of almost 300 action items that need to happen in order to change the brand. All of a sudden, Google shut down our page for fraudulent activity because we're changing our name, and you have to prove it to them and go through the city and the county and show them documents, and the business all of a sudden shut down. It was a very scary thing to do. And we did it, in the middle of peak season, worst time ever. There was never a good time. But I think that's a reflection of, how we are looking at this and how we're, trying to pay attention to the big picture and just continuing to improve, to get knowledge about what does branding means. At the end of the day, your branding is going to determine how good your branding is going to determine how much you're going to pay on your marketing efforts. If you have a good brand, you could pay half for the same amount of leads that somebody else would have to do. You can cut down your marketing spend to a tenth of whatever it is that companies out there are paying right now with the right branding. And so that's what we went for. And we're still on the way. We haven't completely figured everything out yet, but it's working pretty good.
That's awesome to hear. It's interesting because I find myself going through a rebrand, right now as well, and it's a scary thing. And Jobcalls came out of, oh gosh, probably this would have been like 12 years ago when we were doing, I was doing pay-per-call lead generation. Okay. So we'd go out, we'd rank, I don't want to give too much information, but basically we'd rank fake websites, that pretend to be heating and air conditioning companies. We'd go out and build out, networks and get them to rank and get the calls flowing in, and usually they didn't have any reviews or anything like that, but they were showing up. And so we were getting calls and we sold those calls, and it made a lot of sense at that time. We sell job calls. This was just easy. Right. And if you were an electrician at all and you ever worked for the IBEW, right, the Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, you were very, very familiar with what job calls were because you're calling into the job calls boards, getting those jobs, and somewhere along the line, we started moving out of that and really got into really more, comprehensive marketing services, right? Not just doing SEO on Google, but also doing ads and also getting into CTV and also doing social media management and a variety of other things. And all of a sudden this brand just doesn't make sense anymore. And when I talk to people, they're like, I don't get it. It doesn't. And so as much as I think it's challenging and scary to let go of what we had, and there is this fear, like, or is it going to be as well received, or whatever else. And so I get the challenge in that, frankly, and I get the fear in that. And I'm curious for your rebrand, why Trio, and what does that mean to you? And then more specifically, what have the results been post rebrand?
Something that you said was really touching a point for me, because for us, for anybody that goes through this, the feeling of the emotional roller coaster that you're going through when rebranding, it felt to me like I'm I'm giving up on my baby in a way. I was like,
Yeah.
how can I do that? Like I felt like a bad person. Like how can I take this brand and like make it not exist anymore? And I was like, dude, that was a tough time. And I had to go through conversations, and it was my girlfriend that told me, uh, try to just look at it in a different way. Instead of looking at your brand as if it's, dying, as if the previous baby is dying. It's evolving. It's growing into the next thing. It's still the same company. Pacific will always be a part of me. That's how it started, but it evolved into what Trio is today. So it never died. It's still with us, and I know it could sound like, I don't know. People might hear it right now and they'll be like, "What are they talking about? It's just a name and a logo. Like, move on." It was difficult, but the results have been pretty good for a few reasons. One, we involved our entire team in our process of rebranding, and we started surveying people and asked them, what do you think our company stands for? We didn't have our mission and vision yet. We didn't have our core values. We didn't have any of those things as a starting business. We didn't even know what those things are. We didn't know it's important. And we were consulting with people and try to get answers. And people who really knew business, that understood business, are the ones that told us this, like, what do you stand for? Like, how are you going to build your brand if you don't know what are you trying to do? And that's when a lot of employees say, well, there are three main things that we're focusing on. One is always the customer. The customer is in the center of every decision that we're making. It's
Yeah.
it's always there. Like, we're already bringing up in the conversation, how is it helping our clients? Is it beneficial for our clients? Is it going to make it difficult for them, hard for them? Is it changing anything for them? So that was, the first thing. And the second thing was employee development. Like, we've implemented performance pay for every position in the company, and it's when I'm saying everybody, it's everybody, even your accounts receivable, person, the CSRs, like, everybody need the opportunity to make more money from their time. That's how you really put the business on a spaceship, and you don't have to be the person chasing anybody for performance, because they want to do it, and if they don't, they might not be the right fit. Then you need to move on. But performance pay was extremely important, and in our brand right now, as we went about that survey process, so it was the customer, the employee, and the environmental responsibility. Those were the three elements. And then in the name Trio, it also sounds like tree, and we're planting one tree for every job that we do, and it sort of evolved together to this beautiful thing. And then we shared that with designers. Went to a website like 99 Designs, where you can put $800 or $1,000 or $1,200 to prize, and you get 500 designers from all over the world submitting their jobs to you, and you can start rating this. And then you have 2 weeks to decide, and you can talk to them and tell them, hey, can you touch this? Can you tweak this? So this logo that you're watching, oh, sorry, the camera is backwards. It's right here behind me.
Right.
This logo right here, there were too many variations of how to do it. But this one that we decided on had, the 5-star that represents, our, the customer experience. We wanted to deliver a 5-star experience. It represents, what we're doing, which is us. It's our employees. It's our team. And the little tree in the logo is, representing the one tree that we plant for every job. The green around is, the environmental responsibility. But more than anything, I'm going to be honest with you, I wanted something that will be fun to wear. and our employees right now are wearing this, and people have jackets. And I saw one of the girls in the office came with a hat, with a Trio hat that she made, and she put like little colored like diamonds on it, and with the Trio colors. And I was like, okay, this is a brand that's fun. Like, people are wearing it proudly. They want to wear it where they're outside of work. The hat, the hoodie, any little branding things. And I wanted them to feel this way. I wanted them to feel proud when they were showing at the supply house, when they're talking to their friend, to their uncle from the other company. I just wanted them to look like Captain America, right? Like,
Right.
you
Want them to look cool.
yes, I wanted them to enjoy it. And now they feel cool. And now they look at other companies and they're like, I don't want to wear that stuff. Like, even if an opportunity would come along, like, and obviously the pay, the benefits, like everything we're offering, the culture, but it's everything that ties together.
That's so awesome, man.
Yeah.
we I don't think we planned on talking about rebrands, but this has been a really fun segue into things. It's interesting because something that you said earlier that I wanted to circle back on. You I don't think you used this word specifically, but you talked about metrics. Yeah. And kind of knowing your numbers and I've heard several numbers out there. It seems like the one that most people tend to focus on is revenue per truck. And so I'd be curious to know, what are the most important metrics for Trio Heating, Air, and Plumbing, and you and Michael, when it comes to the business?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting question. I think that this question would depend on the stage of, as a leader, of where your business is at. If at a certain stage you are the person that's doing everything, then you really want to go and dive deeper into how things are happening and why they're happening, and every little thing about the process, drive times and everything. But as you grow, the metrics that you care about are changing. For us right now, we're looking at some of those metrics from a little bit higher view. So for example, I would look at, if I'm looking at my service manager, then I would want to look at conversion rate on replacement opportunities and conversion rate on non-replacement opportunities. And I would look at those two things as, separate, to see how are we doing. So say if a technician ran 10 calls, 5 of them were replacement opportunities. Okay, what happened with those? 5 of them were repair opportunities. What happened with these opportunities? And we want to make sure our technicians have 80-90% conversion rate. One thing or another needs to happen.
When you say, really quick, when you say 80 to 90% conversion rate, you mean if somebody calls, hey, it's a no heat call, we're going out. So you're talking 80, 90% of the time they're actually doing that service ticket and repairing the unit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And for us, a lot of companies are doing this by the age of the equipment. And I think sometimes it's going to be a disservice to the homeowner. And I think sometimes it's going to be a disservice to your own employee if that's the only factor that you're looking at. There are 5 main questions that our call center team are asking on every single call, which is, are we meeting with the homeowner? What is the age of the equipment? Obviously, it's an important factor. It's not the only factor.
Sure.
Is the system currently working? Is this just a tune-up call? Is this experiencing some breakdowns? Is it in warranty, outside of warranty? Those basic questions. Is this an existing customer in our system? Did we already service them before? Was this a lead that was transferred from a technician to a salesperson? That means something. So each one of those things is either going to give a point or not give a point. And based on this, we're going to determine whether, the outcome should have been X or Y. And that's how we're going to measure our technicians. And I've made the mistake before on trying to measure technicians' performance on the wrong thing. Completely did disservice to my guys. And, I've learned better. I've learned from them what's right and what's wrong.
Right. One of the common mistakes, I don't know, maybe it's more of a business choice, but one of the things that I have noticed is that at some point, a lot of HVAC companies want to track their service to sales conversion, right? I mean, so for, you take those 10 repair tickets that come in and they all start as repairs more often than not, right? I mean, it's a lot more rare to have somebody call in and go, I need a new system and I'd like a free bid, please. Hey, furnace is out again, air conditioner is out again. How soon can you guys come out? And so one of the things that I know tends to get tracked a lot that I've seen is that conversion rate, meaning that if I go on 10 trouble tickets or 10 repair tickets, how many of those are going to convert into a new system sell? And it sounds like you guys actually have sales techs that are going out, or salespeople that are going out individually, and it's not the technicians that are selling those. But what I have noticed is that it's that number seems to be naturally on its own, probably somewhere between 12 and 15%. And maybe that's wrong, but it's just that's kind of the number that I have heard as I've talked with HVAC and plumbing company owners over the last 15 years, or at least HVAC company. I because this is a very specific HVAC related thing. And then I've also talked to some very, very aggressive companies that are like, we're going to get 50% service to sales conversion, usually it comes out in crappy reviews, because they're hard selling everybody. And if that unit is more than 10 years old, they're getting rid of it. It's just, that's how it's going to go. So I'm curious, is that a metric that you guys track, and what's been your experience around that? And how do you look at that particular metric?
Yeah, let's unpack it. Like, let's go over, the metrics and how things are flowing. So I do know that, there are local companies here that they highly incentivize their technicians to do flips only. And one of the issues with that is that they're also hiring a lot of people without the experience to even diagnose the system, which resulted in some of their best guys with the technical knowledge moving over here, bringing in great culture, great performance, great everything, without sacrificing the customer experience and doing the right thing, because they couldn't stand the fact that that their company is hiring 5, 10, 20 technicians that have no idea how to diagnose a system, because the only thing that the company cared about is only to flip those calls.
Gotcha.
And so for us, there are certain policies that the technician needs to follow. So if they are doing a repair that's over $2,500, that's when they need to bring a quality control supervisor, comfort advisor, call it whatever you want, project manager in whichever company, to meet with the customer, to review everything again and make sure that's the right thing to do to repair versus replace the system. Obviously, if it's a safety issue, we're going to go for replacement. But these are the things. If it's a safety issue, fine. If it's a major repair, fine, that makes sense. Let's go for it. If it's something minor, depends. We can talk about energy bills and let the customer decide what they want to do. Maybe it's better for them financially to just move over to a new system. It's not that we're not going to offer it, but it's not our job to push for it. It's our job to educate the customer about the current situation, about the options that they have, and let them make the decision. They're smart enough to do this, as long as you did your job right, educating and showing them everything. The metrics are, obviously there is the metrics of the call center. So 80%, 85, 90% conversion rate from incoming call to a booked call. Then it moves over to the technician. And the technician, we don't like to measure them on all the calls that they're doing and how many of them they flipped over to a replacement opportunity. We'd like to look at this by the actual age and situation. So if you went to 20 calls and 18 out of those calls was a 2-year-old system that's working fine, and yeah, I would expect you to try and offer other things, maybe air purification systems, duct cleaning, system cleaning, things like this. That's fine.
Sure.
You can sell upgrades, but I wouldn't expect him to flip it to a sell. So now you're doing the service to your customers. So I would say yes, from replacement opportunities, something that is by definition should be a replacement opportunity, then it's fine. Then it's okay to assume 40%, 50%, 60% conversion rate from an appointment by a technician to an appointment moving over to the sales department, because you were already able to define that it's time to replace that unit for whatever the reason is. But the disservice is when companies are expecting it when it's not the right thing to do.
We talked about branding earlier, and I'm not quite sure how that came up, but coming back to the Trio logo and that top circle there, it really is first and foremost about the 5-star experience, and I think that's what you're saying, right? Is it's like let's treat the customers like real human beings and not things that we're trying to sell, and offer what is in their best interests, but ultimately educate them and let them decide.
Yeah. And I think, what's the cheapest form of, a lead that you can get? What's the cheapest marketing source?
Returning customers.
Returning customers, referrals. You're trying to get everything right now, but if you're going to do a disservice, this client could have referred 5 more clients over the next 5 years. That's amazing. And those 5 clients, if you're going to do right by them, all of a sudden it's 25 and so forth and so forth.
Sure.
So that's where reputation is extremely important. If once it's moved over, so the technicians are expected on their replacement opportunity calls to have that level of conversion rate, and on their repair opportunities, they are expected to have similar conversion rate. Overall, as an HVAC company, plumbing company, whatever it is, the expectation of the technician is to convert collective conversion rate 80 to 90%. If they're below that, that means that, their manager, or if it's, the owner of the company, that's their direct manager. Or if it's a larger company, then it's a service manager. Hold them accountable to that performance, and then training comes to place, ride along comes to place. But that's their, thing to worry about. When it comes to the sales department, we're expecting similar numbers on the conversion on replacement opportunities. We are expecting 40-50%, because once you've reached that point, any client that is not moving forward with you is probably moving forward with somebody else.
Sure.
And it's not about right or wrong. It's about who is the company that they chose. So we're holding strong around 40%. Another metric that's very important for me is if the technician went out and decided to do a repair, because that's what needed to happen, we're looking at average ticket on those repairs, which is very important for us. We want to make sure average ticket, is somewhere between $1,200 to $1,500 during slow season, because that means that they really showed customers options and didn't just give them an ultimatum on just a very basic thing that needs to happen. And then guess what? This customer is dealing with another issue next year. You want to give them the full picture. Don't get scared of letting the customer know exactly what's going on. Yes, tell them, here's a Band-Aid solution. It's going to last for that much time. Here's a little bit better option that could last for a little bit longer, and here's the best option. We'll try to bring your system up and running and make sure it's going to last for the next few years. Get more life out of that unit. So conversion rate, average ticket, same thing for the sales team. Conversion rate about 40%. Average ticket in the sales department is about 20. That's what we're doing right now.
That's awesome. And do you measure at all revenue per truck? Is that a metric that matters to you?
No, I don't look at it at all. I mean, I don't think that it's a bad thing to look at, but I don't look at it at all. I just, at the end of the day, if the conversion rate and the average ticket is there, you can look at it one way or the other. But what if your technician brought the revenue per truck, but it took them 1,000 calls?
That's
And their
point.
Performance was not that good. So some of those numbers, I think, are misleading. I think if that number should mean something to you, how do you know that you're winning? I mean, yeah, you can say, let's say, whatever, $1 million a year per truck. Fine. What did you need to spend to get to it? How many appointments did you need to run? Each one of those appointments is going to cost you money. And so if you need to run 1,000 appointments, you're probably not making money on that $1 million. If you had to run 150 calls, your conversion rate was in place, your price book was set correctly, that your process was good, your average ticket is good, then maybe it's fine. But the revenue per truck on its own doesn't tell me what I need to know about if we're operating efficiently and profitably.
I really appreciate that, because there's various, quote unquote gurus out there, right? Especially in the HVAC sales world, I have found that are very, minimum is 300,000 a truck per year. You're doing good at $500,000 a truck per year, and the real superstars are doing $750,000 per truck per year. And it's like, yeah, if you want to focus on just pure results in terms of top line dollars, then yes, that's a metric that you can look at. And there's some, it's sort of like, I don't know, it's like people when they want to sell a company too, right? Like, oh, if I just have a $100 million company, but my EBITDA is 3%, then who cares, right? It's, you're missing a much bigger, I think, opportunity to really play in the margins and understand what those margins are, and to be able to tweak the variables of that, So I like what you have to say there, and I like you sort of debunking, maybe not intentionally, a lot of the dogma out there in terms of this, revenue per truck type of metric, because I think you're exactly right, man. It's like, yeah, we might make $1 million in a truck, but did it take 3,000 service calls to make that a reality?
I'm helping a lot of local business owners and people just from other places. There is a larger company than us in the area. They're at like $25 million in revenue. We're 15, 18 this year. We're helping them a lot because they got to that point without systems, without processes, and they're not making money. They started losing a lot of money. They started freaking out, and they reached out for help. And they had that same mindset of the kind of like the revenue per truck, which don't get me wrong, it could work. The revenue per truck could be your metric as long as you understand what needs to happen to get there. So as long as you're not sacrificing your other metrics in the process. So I could say, great, I want again $1 million per truck, but the way to get there is we need a minimum conversion rate of this. Here is how much our lead cost needs to be, and then holding each other accountable in the process of making that happen. If I reach out to my service manager or my install, like let's talk about the install manager,
Sure.
right? He also needs to bring revenue per team. But for me, when I'm looking at this, you have a target and you have a qualifier of quality. Something like this would look like, let's say you have an install manager and you want them to have the opportunity to make more money, but not to sacrifice quality, not to sacrifice customer service, not to sacrifice revenue or profits. Then you give them a target and say, hey, we need $1 million this month. And that's the target. Okay, how do we get there? Now, he can go crazy and do all the overtime and spend all this money and do whatever needs to happen to get that $1 million. But so he could get you the $1 million with net loss of $200,000.
Right.
Or he could get you $800,000 with profit of $200,000. Like, so you have a target, but what's your qualifier of quality? The qualifier of quality has to be something that they can control. And so for an install manager, for the service manager, for people who are managing this type of position, their qualifier is gross profit. What's your gross profit on that job? They can't control how much you pay rent. They can't control how much you pay for software. They can't control how much you pay for a bunch of other things, but they can control their labor rate. They can control, callbacks and quality of work. Those are things that they can control. So that's what their performance pay is tied to, right?
Yeah.
And these guys can make a lot of money from doing this. I mean, they could hit $100,000 a year bonus if they hit their targets, and they deserve it if they hit those targets, right? So yeah, everything can work, but it can't work if you don't understand what needs to happen to get there.
Well, and I think and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're very much a process kind of guy, and I think that this is these are those subtle nuances to process and knowing your numbers and metrics that most people are kind of oblivious to. And I think it is the thing that really allows you, maybe not allows, but helps to facilitate, that growth from, a couple $1 million a year to, a couple tens of millions of dollars a year. Really it's how well you manage the numbers and diving a little bit deeper into that, we've talked about kind of what the sales and the service numbers are and what some of those metrics are that are important to you. And you mentioned this too, right? Cost per lead. And even that, I think, as a blanket metric, what is the cost per lead? It can in of itself be deceiving without understanding what the conversion rates are for different types of advertising medium as well.
Right.
Because my cost per lead for Home Advisor or Angie's List or whatever, might be really, really low, but my conversion rate is probably not going to be. It's probably also going to be low, right? So what do you see out there in terms of, lead costs and different channels and what works best for Trio?
The bad news is that, a lot of private equities are, got into the trades and obviously they're driving prices up because they're bidding high on everything out there. The good news is that it is going to require a lot of companies to get creative and get out there and utilize more things that are free. And so one of the things that Gary Vee was saying, he was talking about the thank you economy, right? So imagine you're listening to this podcast right now. You're in HVAC or plumbing or electrical or roofing or whatever it is your business is. And you can generate a ton of leads for free just by doing this simple thing. You can have yourself or somebody at your office or somebody at home even. You give them access to your Instagram account, to your TikTok account, whatever it is that you're using social media. And you search for the hashtag first home or just sold or things in your area with the hashtag of your city. And you can narrow down and all of a sudden you see posts of a bunch of people that just bought their first home. So this is incredible. So you can have somebody from your office or do it yourself or somebody at home just start looking for those hashtags. And you're going to see a lot of posts of people that just bought their first home, or, whatever it is, or homeowner life, or just looking for those hashtags in your area, in your area of service. Then all you need to do is just to post a comment. A lot of those profiles are public. You post a comment without offering your services. You are not offering your services. You're just going to say something nice to them. So that could be cute dog. Love what you did with the color for the exterior. Nice landscaping work. Anything nice, like congratulations, and say something nice. So the idea here, it's not going to generate a lead for you. You're not offering your services. That's not what you're trying to do, because it's not going to work, right? People are not going to like this. But in reality, what a lot of those people are experiencing, most people have 3-5 comments on their photos. So every comment that comes in, they're going to see it. And now you get your brand out there. Now you have brand recognition. And maybe they don't need anything right now, but maybe next year they're going to need something. Or maybe their neighbor is going to need something, or a family member. And now you can do 50 of those a day in less than an hour. You can do it in 30 minutes. How many people can you reach out to on a daily basis and let them look at your brand for a moment, and they get excited about every comment they get because they only have 3.
Right.
And so there are creative things that we can do to still win the market. I think that the biggest issue between contractors or clients and their marketing companies is that they don't know what they're expecting from each other. They don't know what they're expecting from themselves. And that creates friction in the relationship. So one of the things that I've experienced early on is I wanted my marketing budget to be, just throwing a random number, 10% of my revenue.
Sure.
Okay, great. The calls are coming in, and my marketing is, we're selling, we think that we're doing good, and my marketing is 30% of my revenue. Then I go back as the business owner to my marketing agency, and I was like, why are we spending so much on marketing? Why are you not doing your job? What I didn't understand is that I never reverse engineer what my average ticket should be, what my conversion rate should be. So I'm converting at 15%, and I'm blaming my marketing company for it. Or my average ticket is $10,000 when it doesn't fit for the market, because I'm trying to win on price because we have no sales strategy and no marketing strategy. And I'm trying to win every deal on price. So I'm, bidding low. That's, again, we're talking about my first year in business, right? I don't know anything. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Sure.
I'm basing my pricing on the market, which is the number one, the biggest mistake everybody makes in business. And that's what happened. And I ruined relationships because of this, is because I was thinking that my marketing company was not doing their job, when in fact, I didn't know how to do my job. And so what you really need to do is go through this process. What is your revenue target for this year? Let's say it's $5 million. And you put it on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper. And then you're saying, okay, what's my average ticket right now? My average ticket is $12,000. Okay, then I'm going to take 5 million divided by $12,000. And that's going to tell you how many jobs you're going to need to complete to hit your target. And then I want you to ask yourself the question, if I need, let's say, 50 jobs or 60 jobs to hit that target, or 600 jobs, whatever the number is,
sure,
to hit that target, what is my conversion rate to sell those jobs? So if your conversion rate is 30%, or let's say 33% for each one of those jobs, say if you had 500 jobs that you need to complete to hit your revenue target, that means you're going to need 1,500 appointments for your sales team. Now that you know that you need 1,500 appointments for your sales team, ask yourself, what is your conversion rate in the call center? Your marketing company is going to create all of those calls for you. Are you capturing those calls? Do you answer on time? Do you follow up with people? Do you have the ability in the process in your call center, the right training to book those calls at a high capacity? But let's say you find out that your conversion rate is 80%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then now you put a number on this. So if it's 80%, then I don't need 1,500 calls. I need 1,700 calls, or whatever that numbers comes to.
Sure.
1,700 calls. Now you can talk to your marketing agency and you can tell them, hey guys, I need about X many calls per month. And we can go into seasonality and how to, more calls here, less calls there, and talk about that. But the idea is I need X amount of calls on average every month. How much is it costing us right now? Oh, well, we're paying $300 a lead right now. Well, 1,700 calls multiplied by 300, man, that puts me at 30% marketing spend again.
Right.
So then we have to start to be realistic. What can improve? Can the marketing company improve their performance on the lead? Well, maybe, but can they cut it in half? I don't know. Maybe you need to improve your call center conversion rate by 5-10%. Maybe you need to increase your price and your average ticket will be 15,000 or 18 or 20. Maybe you need to work on your conversion rate and offer financing or provide better training to your guys. Or these tools together, all of a sudden, even if the marketing company is doing the exact same thing, all of a sudden your marketing spend is down to 20, down to 15. And the second thing that I would recommend to avoid when going into those relationships is marketing companies would most likely are going to talk to you about a lot of things that you don't care about or that you don't understand.
Sure.
Pay per click and what we did here and what
impressions,
we did there.
Right?
Impressions and all those things. It was like, guys, bottom line, how many phone calls did I get?
Right. How many times did the phone ring?
Spend? Exactly.
That's where Jobcalls came from, by the way. Just it's like at the end of the day, nobody cares unless the phone is ringing, Yeah.
Dude, I was sitting on those meetings. I was frustrated. For an hour, I'm sitting on this meeting and I don't understand anything they want from me. I can't hold them accountable to anything. And it really boils down to this. How many calls did I get? How much did we spend? What is my cost per call? If that call was not booked, not their fault. Their job is to make the phone ring. If they have a quality issue and they're bringing you irrelevant leads or something that outside of the work area, of course, let them know, work on it, fix it. But that's the real job.
And certainly too, different channels are going to have different conversion rates to them. I mean, different quality of leads, if you will. We tend to stay away from Facebook and Facebook ads quite a bit because, most of our clients, honestly, it's kind of a catch-22 because the leads are cheaper, because certainly a click prices for Facebook are a lot less than Google, right?
Yep.
But it's a different type of lead too, because they didn't get out on Google and type in HVAC company near me or AC repair near me or something to that effect. They're not in the need right now, and so it's more interruption advertising. And so what we find and have found with Facebook is that our clients are expecting to get that 85, 90%, CSR to appointment conversion. And then all of a sudden they get a Facebook lead where they've got to go chase it down, and it feels like Angie's List, or it feels like more of these lead sell type scenarios, and that can all be fixed with automation. But more often than not, they're so frustrated with the channel by the time you can work out all of these other downline variables, they're just like, I don't want to do this. This is a waste of money, and how dare you even recommend it? So I think that there are what you're talking about here is really, really vital to understand. And I think that there's a big communication problem between the marketing agencies and the HVAC plumbing companies in terms of, talking about all of these things, because it winds up, well, dude, we're sending you the calls, and you're like, yeah, but the calls suck. It's this back and forth. But if we could sit down and had proper tracking throughout this entire lead to sell conversion process, and we know what our KPIs are, and we have a marketing dashboard, right, where we track all of this, then it's a game changer. Then it's an absolute game changer.
And this is why it's important for a lot of contractors to also, use the right software so that they can track those things. Because, we've been working with other softwares when there is no tracking, and you don't have phone numbers that are going to tell you, we're using ServiceTitan.
Sure.
And we can create as many phone numbers as we want. tie them to a specific marketing campaign, and then we can track it all the way to revenue. That helps, the communication with the marketing company. You know where to invest your money. You don't think that it's worth it to invest in a CRM software? I guarantee you're already paying more than that just by not knowing where to put your money. But
What's
I really
that phrase?
that,
I know that half of my marketing is working. I just don't know which half, right?
yeah, and that's what it felt like. And I wish I would have known those things earlier, but obviously there is no school that's telling you, how to communicate with your marketing agency. So I really, anybody that's listening to this podcast right now, I want to, of course, let everybody know that I'm happy to share how we're tracking our marketing. Like if anybody wants to reach out and get help with this, I never charge for those things. I always help out for free. So feel free to reach out. I'll show you how we're tracking it, how we're setting this up, how we're tracking it all the way to the dollar, how we make our decisions, the checklist, of things that we're doing every month to make sure all of our phone numbers are working. There's a lot to it, but once you start, it's really not that difficult. It actually simplifies things and give you a lot of peace of mind.
Sure. Well, I think there's also this point too, where you look at the natural evolution of business and growth. And, when you're one man in a van and you're still out in the field, all you care about is the phone ringing and am I staying busy, and when you all of a sudden move to a couple $1 million in sales and you got 5-6 trucks on the road, then you start getting a little bit more serious about the metrics, but there's still just this sort of feeling about things, right? Like I feel like call volume is up, but I'm not entirely sure. And I think by the time you start graduating, to where you are, where you're getting into, really 8 figures in terms of, top line revenue, you have to start having that level of accountability. And Service Titan is a great one. There's others out there, but one way or another, you do need to have call tracking for every single campaign that's running on your behalf. And where there, and then of course, part of the challenge becomes attribution, because when you look at the fact that Google really owns your brand, your reviews, your social proof is all on Google, right? And even if you're doing Google ads or you run a CTV campaign or, connected television, right? Or you do some other, big branding thing, people are still going to go out to Google. They're going to type in Trio Heating and Air Conditioning. They're going to go through and read your reviews, and then they'll probably call you from that Google business profile number. And so you get this sort of missing attribute of knowing exactly where things are coming from. And there's ways with analytics and other things that you can kind of tease some of that stuff out, but there's always going to be sort of a fluff factor, in that, because of the fact that if you're doing this right, you have an omnipresent strategy. And they all kind of get very interlocked with one another. But the important thing is, are you tracking those metrics?
I think there are ways to know how those, first of all, let's differentiate between awareness campaigns and, campaigns that you're expecting people to click on.
And lead gen campaigns. Yeah,
exactly. So if you're putting a billboard, whether if you put your phone number, your website on it, nobody cares. It's not like people are actually taking pictures of it or actually calling you from it. They might, but that's not the point. Same thing with TV, same thing with radio. The idea usually with those campaigns is not to generate the leads right there and then. What you could do is you can see the improvement of search of your company's name. That's one way where you can see how things are improving. So even if you get that lead from Google, through what campaign that was, through what keyword that was, that could help people understand how that part works. And as long as it helps them lower the cost per lead from those campaigns, whether if it's Yelp, Google, Thumbtack, whatever that is that you're using, those awareness campaigns are supposed to help you drive lower cost on your lead gen campaigns.
Sure.
All right. So there are ways to know. It's never going to be like this perfect exact science, but there are ways that you can know if it's working or not.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because the search landscape has changed a lot over the last few years with helpful content updates and things along those lines. And you alluded to, Google Search Console specifically, right? And being able to measure brand traffic essentially. And when you really look at it's interesting to me. There's a few points that I'll make here. Number one is that you can track those awareness campaigns to a degree, right?
Yeah.
And you're not going to necessarily, if you're running billboards and you're running awareness campaigns on, Facebook, right, that aren't really about clicks or lead gen, and you're doing some connected television, connected television does have some insight and deliverability there that you can track to a point, but you can watch that brand traffic specifically in Search Console in terms of how many people are typing in Trio Heating and Air or Trio Heating or different variations of your brand term. And then obviously you can see what the impressions are for that. You can watch that impression growth and compare it to the previous month or the previous 6 months or year. And then you can obviously see what that click is. And once they hit your website, if you've got good tracking in place and what's the word I'm looking for? Like a call pool, a dynamic number insertion.
Right.
Now you've got the keyword information that they did type in when they converted. And so you can actually measure how well those awareness campaigns are driving the brand traffic that is turning around and converting into actual phone calls or form fills on the website, right? Service requests, that sort of thing. And then the second thing that I'll say about it too, and this is something that we have seen very significantly, but Google has really started to look heavily at brands. We talk a lot about, I talk a lot about Google because I'm an old SEO geek and I've been doing this for decades, right? But Google is paying a lot of more attention to brands, and one of the quickest ways that you can actually improve your rankings on Google, is specifically in Maps, but just in Google in general, start increasing your brand traffic. And so when you do run billboards or when you do run radio, and even though like you said, it's hard to track that very specifically, you can still measure the overall effect of your branding campaigns if you 100%. Do it right, and it's going to impact your SEO as well, and becomes this sort of synergistic effect because now you're just showing up better for those lead gen terms like AC repair near me, right? Or air conditioning installers, that sort of thing. You're just going to rank better, show up better, and get more lead flow as a side benefit of that. So, and I think that is where I notice a big difference between, your sub $5 million companies and your greater than $5 million companies, is that they've gotten to this point where they're realizing that we can't track everything to the T's. We are going to have to spend a lot to brand and get our brand out there. But those branding efforts, like you kind of talked about at the very beginning of this, are going to ultimately reduce what we have to spend in actual lead generation campaigns to hit those metrics that we need to hit the revenue that we want to hit.
Be a part of the community, go out, home shows, farmers market, open a booth like in a bunch of places. Those don't cost a lot, to get your brand out there. It does take from the effort from you or from your team to be there all day, to stand there all day. Yeah, it's not fun, but
sure.
I mean, it's worth it. What was interesting to me, so yesterday we spent the whole day here at our conference room with Sarah Girardo. And Sarah, in my opinion, is one of the most intelligent people in our industry. She's a marketing genius. She's been doing this for many years. She's now working at ServiceNow, and she was kind enough to spend the entire day with us. Didn't, of course, for free, didn't charge us anything for it. It was just fun. It was the second time that we met and we talked marketing strategy. And some of the questions that came up, and I think that's going to be relevant for a lot of the listeners, is, but when and how? Like, how do I know if I'm a $2 million business, how do I know what I should invest my money into? Should I focus more on Google, more on Yelp, more on Billboard, more on this, more on that? And those are difficult questions to answer. Okay, let's say I want to do Billboard. When is the right time?
Sure.
It's hard to know how to understand those things and how to break down your marketing budget and budgeting for each one of those with that budget, right? And what was interesting is that we found ourselves just using ChatGPT for it. And we asked ChatGPT, hey, give me a breakdown of what my marketing budget should be, what my metrics should be for this type of business as a $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, 10, all the way to 100, and give me that breakdown of how I should spend my money. You get your answer in 2 seconds. You get your answer. And it was just interesting to me that we've utilized ChatGPT so much during that meeting to come up with the answers for pretty much everything. And
Like, how
so
does it know all of this? That's what's scary to me, but
what we
sometimes it's really deadly accurate, you know?
it was amazing. It was spot on. And it can take you all the way down to like how much you need to spend per lead, what your average ticket needs to be. It can help you do your budget. Like you nowadays, like new business owners or business owners that are at 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, 15, as long as you're not a $50 million shop, and even at that point, you have so much opportunity that all of those private equity companies and all those companies that have been around since forever, they're not utilizing. And that's where your opportunity is. You just got to use your tools, and you got to be willing to do the legwork and know what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you're not going to see, PE-backed companies going out necessarily and hanging out at the farmers market. And I've worked for some private equity firms, and it's all ads. It's just let's just go. I mean, how do we spend $300,000 a month on ads?
Yeah,
We're just gonna it's just a real basic mentality, and there's not a lot of out of the box thinking. And and it's funny because I'll talk with HVAC company owners, and they're so worried about what's happening with private equity, coming in and like, oh, there's they're making it so competitive, and now we're just fighting against these massive marketing budgets that we'll never have. And it's like, yeah, but you know how unnimble they are. I mean, try to get them to make a decision at $120 million company about how they want their website to look, and it will take you 6 months because it has to go through 8 layers of bureaucracy. There's just, so many people need to chime in, and they don't make decisions quickly. They don't make them easily. And, and it's like,
right.
that's how we stay nimble. That's how we continue to be competitive, is seeking out those opportunities that frankly they're just not going to take, because it's like it requires too much effort and work, and you can't, you're not going to go build a portfolio of 20 HVAC companies doing grassroots type marketing. You're just not,
Right.
So
That's right. They're not, and there are other things too that are happening in the market right now. In the market right now, like rebates and stuff like this. A lot of those, larger operations, they're not going to give the rebate as an upfront discount to the customer. They can't afford to do that. There is a lot of power in being a privately owned, business that's under $25 million in revenue. There are a lot of benefits that you should be using that they can't use to get you there, to get you to to that point where all of a sudden you need to hopefully be creative enough and not spend the way that they're spending and going to, unless that's your goal. I mean, that's fine too. If the
sure.
goal is to sell to a private equity, that's fine.
That is the trend, right? I mean, that is the thing. What do you see for for you and Trio Heating and Air Conditioning? Do you see an imminent sell in the future, or do you expect to stay private for a while?
I think that can happen. It's not something that we're considering. Like this morning, I already got 2 offers, right? Like I open my inbox. It's almost on a daily basis right now that I'm getting emails from people, from companies that I know, private equity companies that I've heard of, and others that I've never heard of before, and I don't know if they're even from the industry or just buying companies, whatever. I don't entertain it right now because it's not relevant for us. We're not there. We're enjoying what we're doing. We're at a very good point right now. We're recruiting nonstop. The team is growing. It would be such a shame not to see how this journey unfolds. And it's, to try and make the dream happen, right? That's what we're working to do for ourselves and everybody that's joining the team.
This
It
is still
could
your baby.
potentially happen. It's still my baby. It could potentially happen in the future, but I will say that based on what's currently happening in the industry, did open my eyes to the type of private equity companies that I will never be in touch with, regardless of the number, right? And that would be a lot of companies that took over some large operations right now, whether if it's a portfolio company or just other smaller businesses. And within a year or two, they destroyed the company culture,
Yep.
and they started cutting down on things. And um, I understand, but what I don't like, they're putting a lot of people who are numbers people, but definitely not tradespeople that don't know how to even communicate about the day-to-day tasks of the technician. So they don't understand the pain points which so and there are other companies, private equity companies that I've seen walk into companies even here in the Bay Area and in other places, and I hear nothing but good things. They helped continuing to grow the company. Culture is amazing. The employees are happy. People start getting more opportunities. So if we start entertaining that at some point in the future, when it would make sense, I would be sure to look for companies where the companies that they acquired have nothing but good things to say about it, and that they were able to hold good retention rates. So those are the things that I'm going to look at. But definitely not in the first in the first few years. Not definitely not in the next few years. We're still building, and there's still a way to go.
Well, you're still in that fun stage of it, I think, too. Where you're enjoying this. You've been in the industry for all of what, 4 or 5 years at this point.
A little less, yeah, 3.5, 4 years, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm personally just very impressed with what you've done, and obviously had the opportunity to interview Michael, and now get the opportunity to sit down with you, and I'm just genuinely impressed about the culture that you have, the way that the two of you seem to be very much in sync philosophically in terms of what's important for you, because it goes beyond just, you're not just here to get rich. And I think that I'm realizing that, right? Like, yeah, money's great too, but what I've been gathering from you and from other, this is I think very universal with a lot of HVAC companies when it comes to private equity, when it comes to acquisition. It's like, I don't want to see my company get chopped apart. I want to see the people that we've built this thing, with and for, to a large degree, that those people continue to stick around. And so I love that the value you place on your people and on the people that are helping you be successful as an organization is what it is, and that's a priority for you.
I'll tell you something that, first of all, thank you. You as a business owners and other business owners that might be listening to this know how much you need to go through to survive every stage of the business, and how much you're putting on the line, and how much you're sacrificing without people knowing, understanding why you're making the decisions you're making. And for me, I told something to my team is I am not paying myself until I know that every position is well taken care of in this operation. And that's what we did. And we actually did that. So Mike and I weren't paying ourselves. We were taking, $4,000 or $5,000 home a month to make sure that we can cover our bills, because we said we are going to start paying ourselves more when the business is in a position when it takes care of everybody within the operation. And we said it publicly. And for a very long period of time, people didn't even believe that that's what's happening, until I'm not the person who is doing payroll. So now there is somebody else that's doing payroll in the operation. And they were seeing that, oh my God, that's true. Like, he's actually not paying himself. And all of a sudden we have a CFO, and, they're actually seeing this. So now the conversation behind my back is about, those things that happen. And what I'm thinking is, it could be that at first, for every person starting a business, it's more of a personal lifestyle decision, right? It's about making money. It's really what it's all about. Like, you want to go out and make money and try to work less, which is not what's going to happen. You're not going to work less. Maybe if you're doing everything right in 10, 15, 20 years, maybe. But in the meantime, you're going to work way harder and probably make less. If you were good at your job before you started your business, you're probably going to make a lot less.
Right.
The thing is, once you got to a good enough point in your business, you are thinking of things a little bit different from a perspective of what is this company means. It turns at some point from, it started for me, to now, oh my God, there are 150, 200, 250 families that are dependent on this business to do well, so that their household are doing well, and so that they can take a vacation, and so that they can have medical benefits and retirement funds, and so that they can have all of those things. And it's very much not about you anymore. And when you're thinking about this, you're thinking about the people in the operation, you're thinking about, what private equity might do when they're coming in. You have to remember something, that whether if you sell your business, and like, if I sell the business right now and I take $20 million from the offers that we're getting, but then I have to live with myself for the remainder of my life. You're going to get used to having that money, and then your mind is going to start working on you. And for every person listening to this right now, we can all agree that sometimes you're taking a shower and thinking about that thing that you did that you're not proud of from 20 years ago. The fact that that little thing can cripple into your thoughts more than once, I guarantee that if it happened to you now after 20 years, that thought probably got into your mind 500 other times. Lower the amount of those thoughts that can go into your mind, because a clean conscience, knowing that you did the right thing, peace of mind is worth taking home 10 or 15 million instead of 20 million, and enjoying being you. Enjoy being yourself. Love the person that you are, right? When you're good to others, you're best to yourself.
Yeah, I think philosophically we're in similar boats that way. You know, as I'm growing my agency, it's not about when asked why I want to grow to the level that we want to grow to, and what we want that to look like, and both in terms of revenue and profit and everything else. It's like the thing that I'm thinking really about is like how many employees I want to have, what I want the culture of the organization to look like. How often do we get together and do barbecues or other company events, right? It's really about the means to the end, and the end is really about how do I help elevate other people, and bring other people up and give other people opportunities. Because let's face it, as entrepreneurs, I mean, I think a lot of us get into the business because we're very like headstrong, right? And don't want other people telling us what to do or how to live our lives, or schedules or anything along those lines. Or somebody angers us enough that we're like, fine, I'm just going to go out and do it better than you, anyway. But there's a smaller percentage of people that actually can and will do that. And I think, and I love the entrepreneurial spirit and the scrappiness of people that get into any business, right? Whether it's a marketing business or an HVAC company or a, underwater basket weaving firm. The point is that, I think there's this almost inherent responsibility that comes with that, to help other people out, to have it be more than just you, and how much income you make on a monthly basis, or what your net worth will be if and when you sell your business for an 8-9 figure payout or whatever, right? And that's, I think that's what makes it all worth it at the end of the day.
Yeah. And people might hear it right now, and it's not about sacrificing profits in order to be that way. You can demand both. You can demand high profitability. You can demand high success. You can demand great culture. You can demand giving back to the community. You don't have to just say, I'm one or the other. You can do both. And you're going to get tenfolds back. But I will say, I'm noticing also a lot of companies that are going out and doing like charity work and like all those great things outside, and donating to that place and this place. I was like, and that's great, but they didn't take care of the people within their company first. And they have an employee that is struggling to get to work in the morning because their vehicle is having issues, and they got a flat tire or whatever. And look inside first. Try to take care of your people first within the organization, the people that put their trust in you, before you go out and do those other things. I received a message last night. I left the office like super late yesterday. It was a really productive, really busy day. And on my way home at like 8:30 p.m., I'm getting a message from a former employee who left our company about 10 months ago. And he started his own business, and he didn't believe me when I said, I'm going to support you. And he's a direct competitor right here. And he didn't believe me when I said, I'm going to support you. And I helped him buy vehicles, and I helped him understand how to hire and like everything he needs, right? He's calling me for every other week, asking for help. And yesterday he sent me a message after a long time that we haven't talked. And he said, I'm finally at the point in my life when I'm going to break the curse of generational, generation after generation of being poor and not having money. I'm finally breaking this in my family, and it's all thanks to you. And I will never forget Mr. David Katz, who believed in me and brought me to his company and taught me all these things, and he's still helping me. And I responded to him and I told him, as long as you have that mission of doing that, and as long as you're going about it in the right way, I will always be there to support that mission. And I want everybody that's listening to this to try and embrace like something like this for themselves and help continue to support, the trades. We can make the trades better. We can define what the standards of the trades are. We can determine what in 5 years, 10 years from now, people are going to say about us, and bridge the gap, of how it sounds when somebody's talking about being a doctor or being a lawyer or being, in tech. Like it's the same thing for the trades, and this is what's happening right now, and it's starting to be felt. And I'm here to support it. Anybody that needs anything, feel free to reach out. Like, we'll make this work.
Awesome. Well, I second your statement there, and a huge supporter of the trades. And honestly, I don't have anything else to follow up with. I think you put just such a beautiful exclamation point on on that statement. And so I think we'll wrap up here. And David, this has been fantastic, and I really appreciate you coming and sharing your experience here with with our listeners and here on the Home Services Marketing Growth Acquisition Podcast. And again, folks, I've been joined here by David Katz with Trio Heating, Air Conditioning, and now Plumbing in that as well. My name is Adam Loveridge with Jobcalls, and I look forward to catching you on the next one.